ich weiß. Die Frage ist, wie kann ich das alles umgehen? Da muss doch irgendwas geben, weißt du, so, also mal gucken. Und so eine Baumwollplatte müsste ich mir vielleicht auch irgendwann mal kaufen.
Das ist ganz schick, ja.
Obwohl ich ehrlich gesagt nicht laufen aus dem Bau.
Du brauchst sie auch nicht. Also gerade wenn du 200er Personas bist du gut aufgestellt. Bei 200 Watt muss ich so oft wechseln. Ich habe sie jetzt nur drauf, weil ich fahre die jetzt leer. Die haben jetzt noch 13,5. Bei 12,6 steigen sie aus, bei 16,1 fangen sie an. Das ging schon recht durch. Aber ich kann halt dann im On auch theoretisch Radio wechseln. Nur eine Zone. Das heißt, deswegen lasse ich mal drauf. Dann kann ich die leer fahren, dann müssen wir die Autos in abends laden.
Ja. Ja, nee, aufs Stativ freue ich mich dann.
Stativ ist eine gute Sache.
Aber erst wenn ich weiß, dass es auch mehr zum Einsatz dann wieder kommt.
Ich habe das Benro verkauft. Gehalt.
Du kannst es mir abkaufen.
Ja, ich muss ordentliche Beine halt. Ja.
Ganz ehrlich, zum Teil, was ich für Beine ausgebe, kann ich auch gleich ein ganzes Set kaufen.
Ja.
Das wie viel Kilo gibt der 18er?
Du fragst Sachen.
18 Kilo wahrscheinlich.
Möglich, ja.
Ich glaube, Werner, das Benni, ich glaube, es geht los. Fangen wir direkt. Läuft? Ja.
Ich will mal 2 Akkus bei Gelegenheit irgendwann.
Bring ich dir doch gleich.
Ja, genau.
Welcome everyone.
Aber das kann ich nicht steuern.
Can you hear me in the back? Yeah?
Wir haben
Good?
auch
Okay.
die Summe.
Welcome everyone. So for those who are watching kind of from afar, feel free to sit down. We don't bite, that's also allowed. My name is Dora Dzvonyar. I'm a science and tech communicator, and it's my pleasure to lead this 1-hour session on AI for Bavaria today. We'll spend 1 hour exploring on how the Hightech Agenda Bayern is going to impact AI research and industry in Bavaria and beyond. We brought 4 experts from the Bavaria-wide AI Research Network with us, who are sitting here in front of me, and you can see also on the slide, we have Professor Andreas Hotho, Professor Botsch, Professor Andreas Maier, and Professor Sami Haddadin. And you'll hear from them in a minute, but before we do that, let me give you an overview of what AI for Bavaria is all about. So normally I'd start a session like this by explaining how AI technologies are impacting industry, science, and society in an unprecedented way, how they have applications in a myriad of fields. I don't think that this crowd needs convincing of that, to be quite honest. So instead, I want to talk about why Bavaria has such a strong starting position to be a hotspot for tech research that glows out into the world. So I don't know if you know, but actually quite groundbreaking research in AI has really deep roots in the Bavarian scientific world. So we're going to go from the bottom to the top. I don't know if you know Ernst Dickmanns, who conducted first experiments in autonomous vehicles as early as 1980s here in Bavaria. You might also have heard of Gerd Hirzinger from the German Aerospace Center DLR. whose autonomous robots went to space and delivered really early, useful insights into telepresence applications. And of course, we shouldn't forget the duo of Sepp Hochreiter and Jürgen Schmidhuber at the top here, based at the Technical University of Munich, who are the inventors of long short-term memory, or LSTM, approach to neural networks that is still widely used today. So Bavaria has this really great track record in especially application-oriented AI research, and the Bavarian government is really heavily supporting that. So they're supporting further developments in the fields because the field is so competitive, and they really want to make Bavaria a hotspot for tech research also in the future. And you might have heard of the Hightech Agenda Bayern, which was launched in 2018 and then further extended in 2020. You can see some numbers around that on the slide. And previously, similar programs were called Bayern Digital, which you might also have heard of. So the financial support is substantial, but it's really not just about finances. It's also about building a strong and long-lasting AI ecosystem here in Bavaria that ranges from basic research to applied research to concrete outputs such as new products, businesses, and value creation. And I want to spend some time in explaining how this ecosystem is composed. So central to it and central to Bavaria is this really widespread AI research network. There are 4 main hubs that were established. Each of them have a thematic competence area for AI research. You can see them on the slide. For Munich, it's intelligent robotics. For Erlangen, it's health. Würzburg with data science, and Ingolstadt with mobility. So apart from their thematic competence, these hubs also bundle AI research in their geographic area. And the map gives you an impression of other actors, institutions, programs, and initiatives that are part of this network. And as you can see, there are really many across Bavaria. And to really give this ecosystem a push, the government also established 100 new AI professorships 2 years ago in 2020. Half of them were directly assigned to universities in Bavaria, and the other half were distributed through a competition. What they also established was the new Bavarian AI Agency, which really serves as the glue of the network. So this network and the AI Agency really play crucial roles in this growing ecosystem, but I also want to talk about another aspect of it, which many of you might be familiar with because it was featured a lot in the media. It's the Bavarian AI.Council. It's a group of really renowned experts, 1/3 of which, so the top row, are based at universities. 1/3 are coming from non-university research, such as Helmholtz Center Munich, German Aerospace Center, Max Planck, or Fraunhofer. And the remaining 1/3 are coming from industry with names like Siemens, Roche, BMW, Google, and so on. And it's headed by one expert from each field, namely Sami Haddadin, who you'll hear from later today, Professor Fabian Theis of Helmholtz, and Thomas Hahn of Siemens. So the role of the AI Council is to advise the government on current AI developments, but also to give impulses to the network so they can start their own projects, they can kind of challenge the network and push it forward and really focus on long-term strategy. So they're also an important asset in the Bavarian AI ecosystem. And the takeaway that I want to give you here is that creating added value for society is really a fundamental goal in this AI ecosystem, and you'll hear this, I think, in the talks of the 4 speakers that are coming up. So the strong research infrastructure is combined with industry presence and really coordinated, pushed, challenged, and moved forward also by the AI Council and the AI Agency. And among the goals are, for example, making Bavaria internationally even more reputable in AI research, acquiring and educating top performers for the field, developing really future-proof products and services, as well as fostering debate, also critical debate around AI in society. And we're really, really excited to continue working on this ecosystem, maybe and really, really hopefully also with your involvement. I'll get to that in the end. For now, I want to hand over also to the 4 speakers. They're the speakers of the 4 notes who are all here today to share with you in person the developments in their respective topic areas, as well as kind of the next steps and potentials. They've prepared really short talks of about 15 minutes for that. And we start with the note on mobility. That's called AI Bavaria and is based at the Technische Hochschule Ingolstadt, headed by Professor Michael Botsch. And as the name says, the node is dedicated to AI-based mobility of the future, in particular in the areas of autonomous driving, unmanned flying, and AI-based automobile production. And with AI having such a huge potential for mobility, I'm really curious about what he's here to say. So I'd like you to welcome on stage Professor Michael Botsch.
Honored audience, it's a pleasure to present you the AI node for mobility as part of the AI district that we have in Bavaria. The AI mobility node is located in Ingolstadt, to be more specific, at the Technische Hochschule Ingolstadt, the University for Applied Sciences, and even more specifically in an institute which we have called AI Bavaria. As an AI mobility node, we also have the task to have a strong cooperation with the terminal nodes, the endpoints of the mobility network, which are located in Aschaffenburg, in Landshut, or in Regensburg at the University for Applied Sciences there. But we also have quite a strong cooperation, for example, with the Technical University in Munich or with the University for Applied Sciences in Amberg-Weiden. Of course, as a mobility node, we also have lots of cooperations with industry partners. The area of Ingolstadt, as you know, has a lot of mobility industry there, and in many research projects we have cooperations with the partners there, but not only around Ingolstadt. Of course, also from Bavaria and outside of Bavaria. If you look at the left part of the slide, you see the structure that we have in the AI mobility node. So it has been mentioned before, we have 3 application clusters, which are on the one hand the cluster for digital production with a focus on automotive production, a cluster for unmanned flying, and the central part is the cluster for automated driving, for autonomous driving. And since many topics are in common in all these application areas, we have also quite a large cross-sectional cluster which contains a lot of important fields, like, for example, ethics, technology consequences, or, for example, the area of mobility infrastructure that is needed for unmanned flying, but also for automated driving. Of course, typical AI methods that are underlying computer vision or NLP also are common for all these application areas. Or, for example, also the topic of business models that go along with new mobility services. And in all these domains, we have appointed professors in the last, maybe 3 years. Of course, there have been a couple of professors at the THI who have worked with data-based methods before, but we have appointed in the last 3 years, since 2019, when the Hightech Agenda has been made public, in the meanwhile 17 professorships, which are all currently building up their research group. And all these colleagues that we have appointed in the meanwhile, they have all a machine learning background, of course, and also practice in industry. You see the faces of the new colleagues here on this slide, and they are associated to the corresponding clusters in the way how we structured this AI mobility node. Let me also present you briefly where we're standing currently. So our institute that we have called AI Bavaria currently has approximately 65 researchers, and our goal is to reach 120 researchers in the next 2.5 years by 2025. And we think this is very realistic because our new colleagues are just starting now to build up their own research groups. In the remaining minutes, let me also present you briefly 2 domains where we are applying machine learning AI in mobility. And I'd like to start with the application where we go beyond the cars and we look at mobility from, in a holistic way, where also infrastructure plays a central role. Since we're convinced that road infrastructure will play a more and more important role in future mobility simply due to the fact that there is a lot of potential regarding increasing the sustainability, increasing the traffic flow, but also a lot of potential that can be gained if we make the infrastructure more smart or smarter when we go to, for example, traffic safety. And what we're currently working on in Ingolstadt, we have something that we call a high-definition test field. So we are equipping 3 main crossings that we have with sensors, and we're doing signal processing with the data that we have here in order to, on the one hand, have a better control for the traffic lights, but also a strong focus is to come up with a warning function that addresses bicycles. So we figured out that in one of these 3 crossings, there's a higher density of accidents with bicycles, and so we want to implement now, without using any car, we want to implement the whole warning actuators, the whole signal processing out of this infrastructure as an application. Of course, the AI methodologies that are underlying are on a large part on the perception level, where we are doing the signal processing of the sensors that we locate in these crossings. And in each of these crossings we have totally 8 sensors. We have 4 thermal cameras and 4 LiDAR sensors. And well, of course, they have to be calibrated. They have to be, since they are, of course, working asynchronously, they are located on 2 poles on opposite sides of each crossing. So we have to do, of course, the work that is necessary to get a synchronization in time, and of course also to bring the information afterwards to a common coordinate frame and so on. So these are some of the, well, simply challenges that we have to face. You see here on the bottom right of this slide the sensors that we are using. They are not yet mounted on, or in this figure, not mounted in the crossing themselves, but what we have done is we have mounted them first of all in a test facility that we have at the Technische Hochschule Ingolstadt, which is called the Charisma Outdoor Test Facility, where we have a large test field, a test facility. And why have we done this in this fashion first? Simply because we cannot stop the traffic in these 3 main crossings whenever we want to change something at the sensors, whenever we have to do some changes in the architecture. And that's why we made a one-to-one replica of this crossing in our test facility. And the focus that we have here is on the perception level, on indeed performing a sensor data fusion in between the sensors that are, well, providing the thermal image, and also the corresponding 4 LiDAR sensors. And this is mainly one of the applications where we're, on the one hand, performing object detection. You see here on the top right mainly a variety of objects that are running there, and we have to, of course, do a state estimation. We have to determine not only the class, which is, let's say, a classical computer vision task, but we also have to do the state estimation. And the big challenge, in fact, that we face here is that it has to be real-time capable. So we need to have a warning functionality to address bicycles which get into some critical situations. So the real-time constraint is quite important in this context. And on the other hand, it's also, of course, the accuracy, the precision that is necessary if you want to come along with a warning functionality that is not producing too many false positives, right? And of course, one of the advantages that we have with this implementation on the test facility is that we can use a ground truth, which you do not have as easily in the real traffic, right? So we have here an inertial measurement unit with RTK GPS correction data, which come up with accuracy of approximately 2 centimeters in the localization. And so we can compare how good we really are with our state estimation. And this is one of the, let's say, main tasks where we apply AI methods, which afterwards are, of course, the basis for prediction models and algorithms that are also implementing this, in our case here, the warning functionality. So this is one of the applications which I think is quite interesting, since we are not looking just from the car outside, which is usually, of course, in some other projects that we have, one of the, let's say, usual and regular cases. It's rather having the view from the infrastructure, from a smart infrastructure on the traffic. And all these so all this signal processing that we're currently working on seems to work quite well. So the current state is we want to bring this prototypical implementation now into the 3 crossings somewhere maybe in the next 2 months. That seems to be realistic currently. Of course, we need a very close cooperation here with the city of Ingolstadt, because we cannot just use and stop the traffic. So that's the way how we are organizing also this project. Another interesting application that we are having when it comes to automated driving is to anticipate early in time how the other traffic participants are going to behave. This is a crucial task that has to be fulfilled by automated cars, because they can only perform trajectory planning, maneuver planning, when they have a clue about how the other objects are going to move. And this is not quite a simple task when it comes to having many objects in a complex crossing, for example, in an urban area. And it's also quite hard to tackle because we do not have a ground truth, right? We do not know what other traffic participants will do in the next 5 seconds. We just see a realization afterwards, and it's just one. But we have to cover always a whole spectrum of hypotheses that can happen. And for this, of course, we are working a lot with data sets. Fortunately, many of these data sets in the meanwhile for urban areas are free available. So we go with this data-based approach. On the other hand, we also are using as much as possible domain knowledge because it's useful. We have a lot of domain knowledge also about the intention based on the traffic rules that are out there and so on. So this combination in between domain knowledge and data-based approaches seems to be quite successful for this application. The idea is, of course, to have an anticipatory behavior of the cars. And the simulations that we're currently doing show that, well, we could, for example, trigger a braking before even the car in the front of us is braking, simply because we have predicted that there will be an interaction, for example, in between two other cars, which will force the car in the front of us to brake. And these are some of the, well, say, points that allow also automated cars to drive as comfortable as possible. Because you always have to keep in automated vehicles the criticality as low as possible. You want to drive comfortably. And this means that you have to anticipate as good as possible the future behavior of other traffic participants. Good. So these were just 2 examples. Let me come to an end of my small talk here by telling you that, of course, the high-definition test field that I just briefly presented you is not the only initiative that we have in Ingolstadt. In fact, there are quite many initiatives when it comes to mobility applications. We have, for example, a similar setting like this high-definition test field in the south of Ingolstadt when you go down from the A9 to the in-campus. Also infrastructure which is equipped there, for example, with radar sensors. Something which is quite interesting to know is that in the south of Ingolstadt, in Manching, there's the airport Ingolstadt-Manching, where there's also a test area for unmanned flying. So there are a lot of possibilities where mobility can be, well, explored. Research is possible in this domain. And of course, if you will have any questions regarding some of these projects that we have here or any other questions regarding the AI mobility node, I would be happy to answer them. You can visit our website, AI Motion Bavaria, or write me an email. So that's from my side first. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. So we're moving from mobility to health to the node that's based at the Friedrich-Alexander-Universität in Erlangen and headed by Professor Maier. And the FAU, you're welcome to join me. So the FAU has had historically strong research fields in both health and AI, and in becoming a node in the Bavarian AI network, they've been able to join this to become a digital health hub for Bavaria. Professor Maier himself is the head of their pattern recognition lab, and his research interests include, amongst others, medical imaging and interpretable machine learning, if I'm not mistaken. And as many here are aware, I'm sure AI has also big potential for health application that is already being used or trialed in different solutions. So I'm really, really curious what you have to share. So the stage is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I hope you can all hear me well.
It's not yet working.
Not yet working? Does it work now? No? Is it getting better? And somebody... Oh, now it seems to work. Okay, so thank you very much for the opportunity.
I think, no.
Switch.
Say something.
Sekunde, die macht es jetzt.
Speakers is very complex.
Okay.
Ja, jetzt. Nee, es ist immer noch das hier. It's still this one.
So I have to speed up my presentation now.
That's okay, don't worry. I cut mine into 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow, and now I feel like a rock star with a microphone in my hand, and now everybody has to listen to me. So thank you very much. for giving me the opportunity to show the AI cluster medicine here. And yeah, I will go straight ahead. This is located at FAU Erlangen-Nuremberg University, and you may or may not know that we are located in the Medical Valley, so there's a lot of healthcare, medtech research going on, as well as there's also several big clinics that we're working with together. And there's more than 200 partners, of, also small and mid-sized companies working in this direction. So you may or may not know that FAU is a pretty innovative university. In fact, we're ranked #1 in Germany and are among the 15 top leading innovation universities, and we have exactly a tradition in medical engineering, medtech, that has been going on for a long time, that is summarized here in our medtech map, and as well as in AI and machine learning. In fact, we had our first machine learning, the pattern recognition lab was founded in 1975, so we have quite a tradition of these technologies back at our university. So this is sorry. So this is why I'm very happy that the government of Bavaria has decided to establish the AI in health cluster here at FAU, and we were already able to appoint several colleagues. So by now all of these persons have been appointed here in our department, AI and biomedical engineering. And yeah, so we are quite happy that we only have one position left to fill, and we could already appoint many colleagues here. So I think this is a good start, but of course we want to see why everybody is so interested in AI, and why I think it was a fabulous decision by our Prime Minister to fund 100 professorships in this direction. And yeah, my lab is the pattern recognition lab. We've been doing this already for quite some time. Right now, one professor, one lecturer, about 50 PhD students, and we have like 10 work groups. And now I would like to show some of the research highlights. Don't worry, I'll keep it short, but I want to make a point why I think this is exactly the right decision by our Prime Minister. Because, you know, we've been researching in this more than 50 years ago, actually. And there we have seen several observations, and in particular right now, many companies became interested to invest in this direction. You can see Google is hiring like crazy, and even if it sounds much, like 100 professorships in Bavaria, Google can also invest a lot of money in this direction. But it's not just Google, it's Microsoft, IBM. Big tech is very much interested in this direction. The Netflix challenge, finally building a recommendation system that would work to select the movies for the user, was solved with these technologies. So there's a lot going on. Even companies like Xerox, Samsung, Apple, they all invest a lot of money, and I think it's just the right time to do it with here in Bavaria in order to be able to compete with the worldwide interest that is going on right now. Why are they interested? Well, of course, there is a lot of progress that has been observed. I have a result here from speech recognition that has been stalling over the past, let's say, 15 years, no big progress. But with the introduction of deep learning techniques, we've seen that over a long period of stalling, and we couldn't get ahead with recognition rates, could not make it better, we suddenly see big advances, such that your cell phone that you have maybe in your pocket nowadays has a recognition rate of more than 99%. So within a set of 100 spoken words, less than one word is wrong. So speech recognition essentially solved if you're in better acoustic conditions than here. Also, of course, there's a trend for building deeper networks, bigger networks, really complicated networks. And of course, this is interesting. We see groundbreaking results there, a lot of research going on, excellent results. But if you want to do that in medicine, you want to make sure that you can also trust these results. And one example that I want to show here is where we are using these deep networks, but we're using them to look at images similar as a radiologist would do. So I have an example here. And what we are doing, we essentially look at the image, look at a small patch of the image, and then try to find a landmark. Like a radiologist would follow the spine in order to find, for example, a landmark on the hip, right? We model this from a game theoretic approach, similar like AlphaGo, and then try to predict the next step to reach the landmark. And we kind of take patches, look at them, and then move slowly towards the landmark. this is a coarse resolution. You've seen we used really big boxes here and downsample the image. Of course, we can do this multi-scale, so we zoom in the next step and then refine the search. And the nice thing about this is we don't have to look at the entire image. So this is very fast. On a modern CT system with appropriate graphics card, we can locate 200 landmarks within 2 seconds. And this is also a very nice approach because we kind of follow the strategy of the radiologist. So once we are finally then in the final scale and arrive at the desired landmark, which we're doing right here, then we don't only have the landmark position, but we also know the path that we've been following, and we can check it for sanity. Would it be similar like a radiologist who looked at that image, right? So this is cool. And also if you have, let's say there's no hip bone in the volume, but we're looking for the hip, then our agent system would try to leave the volume. And in this case, we have virtually 100% outlier detection, where the landmark was simply not present in the volume. So this is inspired by radiologists, so we bring the medical knowledge in there, how they would look at the image, and are able to build systems that are interoperable. However, there's many, many more problems in medicine, and the second example I want to show is image reconstruction. So here we're not interested in a perceptual problem, like finding a landmark or locating the liver, measuring the liver or something like this, which you would do by perception, but here we want to make new images. And you can do that also with deep learning, and here is an example where we have an image on the left-hand side, which is only a partial reconstruction, there's data missing, and now we take a deep learning technique here, a unit, to complete the image. And now you could look at that and say, wow, there's so much data missing, can this even work? And this is a CT slice. It's going right through the chest. In the center of the image you see the heart, you see the lungs, and a part of the spine and the ribs. Now, if you look at this, you see that our AI algorithm was able to complete the image. All of the artifacts are gone, and we get a reasonable image. So that's quite surprising. But we are missing data. There are many measurements that have never been done by the actual scanner in this example. So let's have a test and hide something. Yeah, in the chest wall, let's put in a lesion and see whether this lesion can be recovered. Yeah, this has never been seen by the AI algorithm. So will it just not show the lesion because it's not seen it anywhere, or will it be able to recover the lesion? Well, let's look at this, and just as an example, this is what we feed to the network. And there's a blow-up view on the bottom right, and you can see that the lesion kind of is there, but there's a second lesion right next to it. So I think I can laser. This is the lesion. This is where a copy is coming in, and yeah, here is the spot, and this would be ideal conditions, so the full data set. And if you do that, you can actually recover the lesion. So you see here, this is the lesion, and this is the blow-up view, it's there. So the algorithm kind of works. We were surprised, and then we started playing with it. And something that this algorithm has never seen is realistic noise. So we just add a little bit of noise as it would appear in our sensor, and then this happens. So if you look here at the chest wall, it's not just that the lesion is gone, but the chest wall moves by about a centimeter. And that's a big thing. Yeah? You want to make millimeter measurements in these images, and there's a centimeter suddenly missing. Still looks like a plausible image. So you want to be able to trust these things. And yeah, of course you can retrain with noise, then it gets better. But remember, all what you're doing here is local optimization, and in some of the runs we ended up with algorithms that would, in a blow-up view here, you can see that suddenly organs floating in the air, like liver or kidney shapes, appear beside the patient. And this is something you want to avoid. So one solution to keep with that is, we know a lot about CT. CT reconstruction theory is more than 100 years old now. It has been developed already in 1970. So why not reuse that knowledge? And we can actually do that and reuse prior knowledge, and we can embed it into deep networks. If we know that there is the geometry of the scanner and so on, we can embed it, and we can actually theoretically show that this will lower the maximum error bounds of the learning problem. And we had a very nice proof that this is also valid for deep networks, which was published in Nature Machine Intelligence. And based on these observations, we are now able to build reliable systems that are able to reduce the dose dramatically by fewer measurements. And we believe that, for example, in understanding the bone microstructure, this will be a game changer, and we hope that we are able to reduce the 3D in vivo limit from about 20 to 100 micrometer down to the range of 5 micrometer in vivo scanning, here in the example of mice. Obviously, we're not doing this alone. I already said we have worldwide research interest, of course, going on. It's not just all competition. There's also a lot of cooperation. And, of course, the Bavarian network is not just a Bavarian network, but we cooperate with partners worldwide. So, thank you very much for listening. And, yeah, that already brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Andreas Maier. We might need this again. So now we move, we move toward the north of Bavaria, toward the data science node that's called Center for Artificial Intelligence and Data Science, or short CAIDAS, that's based at the Julius-Maximilians-Universität in Würzburg. This node has 3 main research areas: 1, fundamentals of data science and machine learning; human-centered AI and data science for selected scientific fields with groups around, for example, computational biology, remote sensing, or process integration for AI in companies. The node speaker is Professor Andreas Hotho. You can also join me if you'd like. He holds the chair. They have a bit more time to adjust your microphone if you do, I think.
Hopefully this time, yes.
Yeah, okay, it works. So Andreas Hotho holds the chair for data science at the university in Würzburg, and he'll tell us all about the newest developments in this thematic area. So, stage is yours.
Yes. Thank you very much for the introduction, and welcome everyone. My name is Andreas Hotho, and I'm the head of this CAIDAS Center, and I will talk a little bit about it. So the center was founded in 2020 and at the GMU in Würzburg, and it's about artificial intelligence and data science. And we are located in the north of Bavaria, so not in the center, I learned. And so we approaching, when we finished the hiring process, which is currently running, 30 professorships ranging from core methodology development, so really core research, to application-oriented professors. And we try with this setup to connect all the different research areas within Würzburg. And the aim of the center is to make significant progress in the field of artificial intelligence and data science. And of course, we are connected with a couple of other places within Bavaria. So we start to build this network, which is intended by the Bavarian government. Among them, we already cooperated with Coburg, Bamberg, Bayreuth, Hof, and so on. And we making progress here. Okay, let me move a bit in a closer detail to what we actually doing, how we structured a bit more. So we developed it a bit further, and we divided it into 4 pillars. On the one hand side, we have AI for life science, human-centered AI, as already mentioned, but also AI in digital humanities and for business and societies. And we try to structure the center in these 4 pillars. And we already started to hire people on the fundamental research, but also started current projects, for instance, with the DCPTM in collaboration with the medical faculty and the university hospital, but also, for instance, with the ZPD, the Center for Philology and Digitalization, where we collaborate with our colleagues from the humanities. So this is really a broad range, and we are full university, so we have to somehow cover all these different aspects. And here I would like to give you a glimpse on where we are. So we are not that far as the others, so there are still some positions open, but I hope so in half a year most of them are filled up with people, and so we make good progress here. But we also have already a lot of people which works on the different areas and levels. So on the top you see the research really in this core AI and data science, and the bottom more application-oriented researchers. Okay, so now I would like to to dive deeper into 2 examples, and I thought it would be quite interesting for everyone to see an example where we do data science for bees. So we have a lot of sensors here, and you can see the beehive just in the back, which is a real beehive. Let me zoom in a bit. There are a couple of cool things. On the one hand, it's a smart beehive, so there's a lot of sensors. But on the other side, the idea is that we locate these beehives on schools. And to make the kids aware what's going on, so you can open up the beehive and have this window there, you have the glass, you can see what the bees actually doing, yeah, without going into any danger. Yeah? So this is quite cool thing, I think. But now go back to the technical stuff. So we distributed 100 beehives over Germany mostly, but also worldwide, and we're still planning to make progress here. And this beehive is just standing for a couple of years data, so we collected 30 billion measurements and have terabytes of image data. Okay. So what kind of data do we have? So the first thing is that we have a couple of temperature data. Yeah. So the beehive, so the nest in the beehive is distributed in the inner side, so we need to measure it in a certain areas. And then we have weather information, so rain photo sensor, wind sensor, and also air and temperature outside. But we also have environmental information, so fine dust, just to get an idea of what's the pollution situation next to this hive. Okay, so all this we collected over the day, and we have also cameras. And to give you a glimpse of what's going on within this beehive, and this is also, you can just check it by yourself. We have a small app, so you can just go to the website. This is a spontaneous move of the bees within the beehive. So they're just starting to take it over. And you see the front camera and the back camera, and then they start with their colony. So this is roughly 15,000 to 20,000 bees entering the hive. Okay, so what we're actually doing now. So here you see a figure. This purple is just the temperature over the day, so it goes up and down and up and down. This looks good weather conditions, so the bees fly out. So this is the blue graph is the weight. So when they in the morning fly out, it goes a little bit down because a couple of bees are going out, and then they collect the honey and come back with the honey and with the pollen and all these kind of things. So the weight goes up. And over the days, they collected a lot of this material. So roughly, I would say 4 kilograms over this week, which is quite good. Okay. But then suddenly this blue graph drops 2 times, and the question is what happens there and how can we detect this? Yeah, and so let's zoom in. So what we on the one hand side see these temperatures graphs which are on the top. So they have a small spike, but more or less they are stable, which is quite common. So in the beehive it's warm. So if you're just having your hand on the beehive, it's air conditioned with 35 degrees. But there's this small spike when the weight drops. So, and the question is what actually happens there, and we can zoom in. There's really something happen. So and the idea is now to make use of machine learning to detect this automatically. So we could do this by hand, but I'm a lazy guy, so I will not do it by hand. So we need to apply the machine learning. And what actually happens here is a kind of anomaly. The question is, what kind of anomaly and to whom inform? Yeah? We would inform the beekeeper, but what actually happens is seen here on this video. So it's a bit compressed, so it's quite fast. So the bees are swarming, which is a natural event. So the old queen is just leaving the beehive with approximately 15,000 bees. So you're losing roughly half of your bees. Also the honey is going partially out, so this is not a good event. And then after a couple of minutes, the weight is dropped and the bees are left. And then the new queen, which is already inside, is taking over the hive. Yeah, so this is the natural phenomenon in the Good. So back to our technical side. So now we have one event. The question is, are there more events? And of course, we have the normal event. We have this the swarm event, and we could open the hive, just to inspect what's going on. So the weight drops again, but it comes up later on. So it looks like a different type. So we're working on classifiers which are on the one side detect these new classes automatically, but the other side just take care of what we already know. So this is called semi-unsupervised learning, and we're making progress here. Okay. I don't know if this audio works now, and I don't know if it's loud enough, so I didn't test it. But let's move to the audio sensor. And what you actually can hear now is from the inside of the beehive, the noise of the bees, and also a kind of quaking. So this queen, the new queen, is communicating with the old queen and asking basically if she's still there, and if not, then she can come out, and if she's there, then the queen is waiting. So I'm just pressing the button. I don't know what's actually happening now. This noise is the one which is quaking, yeah? Okay, now it's becoming far louder, so when the bees are leaving the hive, this is like this, and then it's turning back to normal, yeah? So this is the usual behavior, and the idea is now to make use of this audio sensor to detect the event earlier, and then to avoid that the bees are leaving, and then you can inform the beekeeper a bit earlier, and then he's not losing half of the bees, yeah? So that's the point here. Okay. Let's move to another topic. So before I do that, so what's the long-term goal? Actually, on the one hand side, we would like to find out what's the influence of the environment on the bees. So we have this 100 beehives distributed. On the other side, the bees are also very sensitive. So, and we can use them as a sensor to detect changes in the environment. Yeah. So these are the basic long-term goals of this project. Okay. And now to a totally different topic. So natural language processing. I think this is one of the fundamental things. Do I have time left? I hope so. I think natural language processing is the thing we all do when we somehow communicate, we exchange information. And it would be cool if human and AI would make use of this kind of natural language to just communicate. And for this reason, we are interested in doing research on this. And the second thing is we have a huge amount of text data available, yeah. So and we can make use of it, and it's becoming more important. You see it on the right-hand side. So the revenues based on this kind of technology is increasing. So there's a couple of reasons why we would like to do this. But for English, we have really a huge amount of data. But for other languages, it's not that big. So and if you would like to train this kind of models, we need huge amount of data. Yeah. So, for instance, this GPT-3, which makes it in the press, is 175 billion parameters and terabytes of data. So, if you would like now to apply it to a language where we don't have this kind of data, yeah, then it would be beneficial to build some kind of applications, but without the data we need some kind of transfer. Yeah? And here's an example. Goran has developed in the past a chatbot to support multilingual communication with couriers. So typically their mother language is different than the languages where we have the data to train the bot. So we train it on German and English, and then we do a transfer learning of this model to the other languages. And based on that, we can communicate now and ask the same question as we could do with English or German in, for instance, Croatian. Yeah? And so this is one of the work Goran has done. And the last example, and then we'll finish, is so now we have seen that we can make use of the language technology and to do the communication. But in this case, it would be also good if we could get an understanding of what's going on. And I'm not sure how many of you have heard about Twitch. So who has a bit older kids gaming and playing games, multi-online player games. I've heard your kids are a bit young, but mine are old enough. They make use of Twitch, and it's like a virtual stadium. There's really a mass of people joining, watching together a stream, an online stream of a game. And then on the right-hand side, you see a chat. And usually in this chat, they communicate about what is going on in this game. And what they developed over the past years is their own language. Yeah? So, and they mostly use emotes to do the communication. So we have a totally different language than what we actually doing. Yeah? And the question is now, first of all, we need a data set. So at my chair, we collected a huge data set of all this kind of comments. Yeah, roughly about 1 to 2 billion messages per month. And there are channels with up to 100,000 participants. So no one can read what they actually write in this chat. But nevertheless, it would be very beneficial if you would like to do marketing and try to approach people to get an idea of what's going on. And this is, you need to deal with this uncommon language. And the basic idea, what we have done in the past, is to do a sentiment analysis expressed in the comments to get an understanding of the situation of the audience. So basically what's happening there and what they think about the current situation. And here's just a very short idea of the keynote in 2018. So this was one of the keynotes where they announced a new GPU. And just ignore the detailed report. So the basic information is what you see is a kind of score saying to you if they are happy or not. Yeah? Higher means more happy and lower means they are very unhappy. So basically what happens here with the keynote, Nvidia announced a feature which the community doesn't like. So this ray tracing feature, it was an awful announcement and people didn't like it, and you see it immediately in the score going down. And then there are these other kind of cool technical things, and so everything was fine. So you can easily extract this basic emotions out of or sentiments out of the chat. Okay, so to sum up, and this is my last slide, I think we are all aware that data is everywhere and pushed by the digitalization. I've only shown 2 small examples from text and sensor data, but we can make use of this kind of data. And data science and the methods we develop helps to create value out of this data. And what I think is that data is the new oil, and we need to extract something out of it. And we in Würzburg at Kaidas works on the novel data science methods to drive this kind of development. And I hope you found something interesting, and I'm here for questions. Thanks a lot. I don't know how much time
Thank you so much. This is a good moment to say that all the speakers will be available afterwards for questions. So if you want to stick around and talk to them, I would recommend that. For now, last but not least, we return back home here to Munich, to the Munich Institute of Robotics and Machine Intelligence. They research the fundamentals of robotics, perception, and AI across various disciplines such as engineering, computer science, life sciences, medicine, and social sciences. The founding director of the node is Professor Sami Haddadin, who I'd like to welcome on stage so that they can, they have a little bit of time to adjust your microphone. Sure. He's chair of robotics and system intelligence as well as at the Technical University of Munich. And your research fields, amongst others, I think, are robotics, AI, and human neuroscience. And I know how passionate you are about bringing that research to reality, so I'm also very curious of what you're going to tell us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dora, for the introduction. Thanks. And I think what is first of all to say is thanks to the AI agency that has been recently established in Bavaria, and to Dr. Klimke as the new managing director to pulling this off and kind of now giving the AI kind of ecosystem in Bavaria more and more face. So it's really wonderful to see that. Today I'm not going to talk so much as the director of MIRMI, but more for the whole node of intelligent robotics at Munich, because we have lots of things there. So why Munich and robotics? I guess it's almost the automatica gives the answer, right? So there is so much robotics here. There's not only classical robotics, but there's in particular this transition to intelligent robots, so software-driven, AI-enabled systems. And obviously, this is something that, as a robotics or AI researcher, we dream of for many years, and now seeing this wonderful automatica has basically been a dream come true. So I guess one thing about robotics in general, what we try, and you can see it kind of along the entire line, from the AI Society down to the Robotics Mechatronics Center of DLR, is really that we try to stick to the question of what is the use of systems. So if you differentiate research about the fundamental quest for understanding and the application, then typically kind of in Germany we have this idea that we have basic research in the terms of Niels Bohr, and we have pure applied research in terms of Nikola Tesla or Edison. But what is interesting, I think, is when we see this across Automatica as well, is that there is this third quadrant that is called the Pasteur quadrant, which is really about putting inspiration into the basic research. And I think it's very important that robotics, intelligent robotics, really should serve a purpose, and this is kind of really what we are trying to do. Intelligent robotics for the quality of life. I think this is kind of where we are going, and which is really the fundamental storyline about robotics in and around Munich, and together with all the entire Bavarian AI network. And this is something that is not only obviously happening in Munich. I think the idea of bringing purpose into systems is all over the world. So whether it's in MIT, Daniela Roos here as a CSAIL director is really very, very keen in bringing intelligent robotics technology into reality. We see this in Japan with Nakamura and his colleagues. In Japan, I think we know there's especially the healthcare sector, fundamental application sector, or disaster scenarios. Recently, Antonio Bicchi from IIT and the University of Pisa gave a fantastic talk at the World Conference of Robotics, ICRA, about basically the relation, the symbiosis between humans and machines. And then obviously we have the fantastic work in the US. And just to give you one example, Dieter Fox at University of Washington and Nvidia, kind of bridging the gap between sim to real. How can you deploy large-scale machine learning for robots? So the idea is also always there is a use, there is a purpose in these systems, and not only developing technologies. And at MIRMI, we have been working a lot over many, many years and decades with many, many PIs to essentially develop robots together with our collaborators. And which is really fantastic at TUM in general is that we have a critical mass of researchers across the disciplines. So not only in 1 or 2 or 3 departments, typically you have them in computer science, electrical engineering or mechanical engineering, but actually we bring together social sciences, ethics, medicine, physics, and so on and so forth. We collaborate with chemists, and I think this is something where we can really see that intelligent robotics can make a big difference. I think what is fantastic also, and what is really a great thing in Munich, is that we have fantastic worldwide leaders in the field, that now one of the main, I think, challenges, but also opportunities we have in Bavaria, together with the wonderful nodes and the fantastic work we have been seeing so far, we really want to drive forward a kind of an entire ecosystem, and not only have single PIs working, but really bringing these fantastic people together to really, do something for Bavaria, but also for Europe at a large scale. I think there's a great chance for many of the dimensions we can talk about. One thing that is also interesting is that Munich has not only already a strong ecosystem itself. Obviously, one of the core facilities that we have in and around Munich is the Robotics and Mechatronics Center. So please go there and have a look at the fantastic results that DLR has been producing. I've been myself for many years at DLR. Back then when Gerd Hirzinger was the director, and now Alina Albushefa is the successor for many years. And they have been driving the field of intelligent robotics and mechatronics forward for many decades. We have fantastic new initiatives such as the MIRMI Center for Geriatronics in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, where we also collaborate with DLR. And we have the fantastic ecosystem, and it's really hard to count all the amazing players, not only local ecosystem, meaning the universities, the labs, the new research facilities, but also the startups and the international corporates that are coming there, such as Google, Amazon, Apple, and so on and so forth. We have obviously seen that in the Bavarian AI.Council, there's also many people from some of the big companies there. What is really fantastic is that we also have a very strong ecosystem for entrepreneurship in AI and robotics. I think many of you know the Unternehmertum and the Munich Urban Collab space that has been recently opened. So it's really about bringing together industry, new innovators, young talents, and science to really drive forward the innovation in Munich and around. What is, I think, really important, we saw it in the 3 talks before, is the talents in AI. We all know that it's very competitive at the moment to bring new talents in AI into our ecosystem, but I think we are quite successful in general. We saw that many of the slots of the 100 professorships were already filled, and I think it's not only in the scientific sector, but we also need to bring strong people such as, for example, Anna Bauer-Mehren, who recently joined, some years ago now joined Roche again, really bringing them to Munich, really giving them the opportunity to shine and really have people who have international reputation in their respective field, being data science in this particular example, and then driving the AI agenda of big corporates in and around Munich area, which is really fantastic, and now being also part of the AI committee of Bavaria. Another example is Matthias Niesner, who we brought in some years ago from Stanford, who has been, I think, instrumental in the whole idea of creating deep fakes, which the last years has been becoming really, really big topic. In general, how does deep fakes kind of change the way that we communicate? How can we put trust into these kind of technologies? And another thing which is, I think, really important is that, at least for Munich, we really think that our new talents are our kind of gold. So we try to attract the best people to Munich area and really make sure that in comparison to all the other national competitors, we really have a great asset, which is the young people who come to Munich, to TUM, to LMU and the other facilities and institutions to really find a place where they can shine, where they can really learn from the best and try to create an ecosystem that builds on talents. Another thing that I would like to put your emphasis on is that in comparison to the other big locations in the world, and obviously it's just actually a bit older internal study that is not made public yet, is that in Munich we really have comparable sizes to the international hotspots in terms of high-tech talents, and also many international people coming to Munich, which I think is extremely important if we really want to bring forward the next generation of technologists and robotic natives. Another thing is this is just an excerpt obviously from the fantastic people we have been now being able to pull into the Munich ecosystem. Just to give you a few examples, so at TUM, at LMU and at Hochschule für Philosophie and the Filmhochschule. So one, for example, being Bernhard Skalem-Ödelmann, who's an expert in nano and micro robotics. She has been coming from Harvard. Stefan Leutnegger, who has been yesterday also part of the Hightech Summit, has been coming from Imperial College London. Or Christina Piazza, who joined us from Chicago Rehab Institute, one of the foremost institutions in rehabilitation robotics. Just recently, Angela Schöllig joined us at TUM as an Alexander from Humboldt professor. She's an expert in AI for intelligent systems such as robot, but in particular in reliable and safe AI. Another very important person that I want to point out here is Gitta Kutyniak from LMU, who has been instrumental into kind of bringing the mathematical foundations of AI more and more towards also the interconnection to intelligent machines. So really a very important person for the collaboration between TUM and LMU. So for the ones who know Munich a little bit, know that TUM and LMU always have a kind of friendly competition, and this is now really an instrumental person who pulls together all these great synergies, and now we are together with DLR kind of trying to form a triangle of power and of competency in intelligent robotics, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Obviously there's many other people that have been appointed, but I will not go into details, and more are to follow. So we are a bit, I think, behind schedule, just a bit, and now really hiring lots of people, which I think by the end of the year is going to be looking very, very fine. What is, however, also equally important, I think, is next to the scientific fundamentals, is the ecosystem, the translation, such as we see around here. So I think what is extremely important is that in the Munich ecosystem, we are an attractive location for startups and corporates alike, which I really believe is instrumental to really driving forward not only the fundamental research, but the translation into society. And with youth-driven inspired intelligent robotics, I think we can really create something of uniqueness. So the global players are there, but also the capital that is overall invested in the Munich startup ecosystem is quite a lot. So it is in fact $3 billion in 2021 across all domains. AI obviously being one of the biggest ones. We have here some very nice examples of robotics and AI startups, including Franca Amica or Navis, Twace, Magazino, and many of them we can really see, Reactive Robotics, Konox, and so on and so forth, we can see around here in this hall as well. So I think we really have a fantastic ecosystem that I think in Europe is one of the leading ones, and it can really compete also with the big hubs. Another thing that I believe is really important in the Munich ecosystem is the idea to team up with big corporates such as SAP or with Siemens, for example. So we have this industry on campus concept where we really bring together large corporates together with the scientific research institutions such as TUM and others to really work and research under one facility. So this is things that right now are happening in Garching. And then just some research highlights, because I'm almost, I think, at the end of my talk. So I really want to hint towards some of the great locations we have that we talked about already to some extent. So research highlights in intelligent robotics. And obviously it's a very, very small selection. And I would like to invite you to really have a look at all the many things you see around here, which are really, really fantastic. So one thing that I guess is really interesting now is that together with LMU, TUM is teaming up to not only, be friendly competitors, but really drive robotics, intelligent robotics, human-centered robotics together into a new age that across kind of dimensions and spans, which I really think is fantastic, with one of the foremost basic research universities in Germany, such as LMU, and TUM as a technical university can team up to really bridge from society to basic research. Another thing that just recently was acquired to Munich is led by Stefan Günnemann and also Gitter. So you see Gitter is really extremely powerful in the Munich ecosystem, is the so-called Konrad Zuse of excellence in reliable AI, which is about bringing and training the future generation of AI experts in Germany, especially for reliability, safety and trustworthiness in AI. This is something we are really particularly proud of, and this is a very, very great effort that Stefan and Gitter have been pulled together. So you see TUM and LMU can really join forces in the AI sector, and this is something that strategically is happening at the moment. Another thing that has been really instrumental for the intelligent robotics ecosystem in Munich is the joining forces with the communication people. So really with experts such as Wolfgang Kellerer or Holger Boche, who are leading the 6G Live project, which is one of the biggest BMBF projects, really bridging the gap between communication, AI and robotics. Then we are also very, very active in basic research. Here's a recent proof of Holger Boche, Fono and Coutinhoc that is, I think, very interesting, that bridges the gap between theory and the need for new computation. So we all assume that classical digital computers are the way to go with AI. Interestingly, they just found that for certain problems there is no possibility to train a neural network with arbitrary accuracy with classical digital hardware. However, if you go with analog hardware, that would become possible, which would be a breakthrough, obviously, in the way that we compute AI. All right, then we have great work, which you can see later on if you go for the Robotics and Mechatronics Center on the other side, is all the work that happens in Oberpfaffenhofen, so one of the biggest research facilities of DLR, where robots for healthcare, surgical aspects, assistance in the household, and I think with many of the things you can see there. So this is the lab that is really being led by Alina Albusheffa, the DLR director, that is also here, and you can later on talk to him, and I'm sure that he's also going to answer many of your questions, also part of our AI.Council. Then we have recently started the AI Factory, a flagship project of the Hightech Agenda that is about the autonomous factory that can reorganize, replan and really manufacture goods on an individual level. The idea is to bring this not only into technological implementation, but develop that AI factory, and this is supposed to be a node that spans over entire Bavaria and can connect to all the other nodes as well, is that we want to do it, or we are doing it, in the Deutsche Museum, so that general public can visit it, can experience it, so that we can really translate into general public and really interact with them on the best possible terms. Which is, by the way, I think an original idea by Professor Wolfgang Heckel, who is the director of Deutsche Museum, one of the biggest technical museums in the world. And in case you are interested in this, in the Bestelmeier Bau, which I think many of you still know from the IMAX, this system will be implemented. Okay, then. Another thing that we are driving forward, and there's some tight interaction in the future with the DLR Center as well, is the Geriatronics initiative in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, where we want to have a new campus that is centered around healthy and forward-thinking, intelligent interaction between smart assistants for being support of the elderly. So the idea is really to build intelligent systems that are able to support the elderly, but also the healthcare workers. And there we have a huge network of collaborators that really try to bring this vision into reality. Okay, then last but not least, I think it's really important that we also reach out to the reality. So we recently showed that, in the pandemics, where sports people always had to, take their trophies when they won by hand, so no one was able to hand it over. There were certain regulations, and since we are kind of active in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, and by the way, this is quite complex if you do it at -10 degrees in just a few weeks. The idea was then that our service robot Garmi delivers the trophies at the Ski World Cup of the women at the Kandahar. So for the ones who are doing skiing, the Kandahar is a pretty nasty slope. And at the end of the Kandahar, Garmi was then handing over the trophies, which was quite nice. So here you can see quickly the video. And I think the faces of the ski of the winner kind of say more than 1,000 words. And by the way, this has been supported by Vodafone. Right, so this was day one. And we even were able to manage with a shared first prize. Okay, so obviously you can see that intelligent robotics cannot only do industry, it cannot do only healthcare, but it also can do ski World Cups, which I think is a nice way that we can, make people aware of what we're doing. It's a fantastic interaction with the general society, and that's the last thing I wanted to bring you. Is that we in Munich are really now starting to join forces, not only between the two big universities, TUM and LMU, but together with DLR. Our goal is really to build a hub of intelligent robotics, to really set this at the priority and really put us on the map of the worldwide centers all together, because we believe we have a world-class, not only PI, but also ecosystem in Munich, a hub for basic research, translation research, and also the industry. And this would be the last thing I brought for you today. I would like to say thank you to all of the speakers to present the nodes in the AI system of Bavaria, and I'm sure there's many more things to come in the future, and we will keep you updated. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. So my job is now to tell you how you can get involved if you'd like to. So if you'd like to hear more and participate also in building up this Bavarian AI ecosystem, there are two really good opportunities to do so in June and July that are on the slide. You're also welcome to take a picture of this. The third thing that's on the slide is actually something that hasn't been officially announced yet, so it's my pleasure to do so today in this round. It's in October, the first Bavarian International Conference on AI, right here in Munich. And if you'd like to already save the date, as well as look out for the announcement, which will be likely by the end of this month, you're really welcome to do so. We're at the end of our session. I'd like to invite all of the speakers with me on stage and also tell you that if you'd like to reach out to them, come on. These are their contact details, and they're also sticking around to answer all of your questions after this session. So thank you very much for listening and enjoy your day.